there, Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss American Trading Corporation. I said CEO there. It kind of came out a little ragged, a little rough. You are tuned into our podcast, The Secret War on Cash, where we are taking a look at some of the changing dynamics in our financial markets and our economy. I have with me to do this my co-host, Chris Agelastos. Chris, how are you this fine day?
Doing great. We got a couple days of rain in Arizona, so that's I know most states probably don't want the rain to come, but we love it when we get it.
Which hasn't been very often here lately. So yeah, very nice to get some rain. Well, we're going to talk. Our last podcast, actually, we talked about silver. We're going to do it again
hmm
because it just seems to be it is capturing all of the headlines out there. In fact, I really like this first article, the headline uh, that we're looking at here. I can have it here 1 second. Rich Dad Poor Dad author says one asset now the biggest bargain before stock and bond markets crash, and it's not
Yeah.
gold or Bitcoin, which is a very fitting title to this article, in so much as that he's absolutely right. I mean, silver and excuse me, gold and Bitcoin really have been capturing all the news for quite some time now when it comes to some of the changing dynamics in the financial markets, all the things with tariffs and bricks
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. But silver is really looking as though this is it's going to be its time to shine, if you will.
Yeah.
And Kiyosaki, he's long been a pretty big advocate of owning metals and that type of thing. But what he gets into here is kind of breaks down for us, why he thinks that this is going to be the year for silver. So tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
what he's talking about here, what he sees happening.
Well, he's definitely predicting a big crash in the stock, bond, and real estate markets, and he's been talking about that for a while. And we have sort of been able to kick the can down the road a little bit here in the U.S. economy. Like the economy isn't doing great by any means, but it hasn't completely tanked, and a lot of people feel like we've been kind of balancing on this precipice. So he feels like now through summertime, over the next few months, that we've got a high probability for a major crash. And I should say too, he likes gold and Bitcoin. Robert Kiyosaki is a big fan of all of those items. But what he's talking about with silver here is that silver has really been kind of stagnant, let's say, the last year or two. I mean, it's kind of been hovering in this, 25 to $35 range, and it hasn't really broken out of it. So while gold and Bitcoin prices are at and near all-time highs, silver is still well below, nearly half its all-time high. So there's just a lot more room for it to run. And historically speaking, silver usually trails gold a little bit. So gold gets some of the growth and the exciting headlines, and then silver follows behind. So it's what he's saying here is that it's just good timing. He feels like there's a lot of potential in silver, and when you figure you can get into silver in the $35 range, that's very affordable for almost anybody. I mean, my young kids can invest in silver. My daughter was asking me about gold the other day, and I told her she was going to need about $3,500 to get a 1 ounce coin, and now she's looking for me to help subsidize that purchase. So yeah, I know, right? But silver is very affordable. It's got a good amount to move, and a 50% increase would only take it to not even 50, 50 around $50. So just a good opportunity and an affordable item for people to put some money into right now.
Sure. Well, with any market and any investment, the value of it, stock, bond, gold, silver, whatever it is, it boils down to supply versus demand, and that's where values are
hmm
set. But with that said, what I do like a lot about silver, and this is touched on Kiyosaki, you talked about it, and several others who are looking for this big pop or jump in the price of silver. Even at the let's call it the 34 or $35 an ounce price levels, it has such a low price point. And if in fact people do start to maybe get out of Bitcoin and come into silver, or get out of gold and come into
hmm
silver, it, really there would not take a ton of buying pressure for it to really move that needle. And that's why,
Yeah.
in our earlier podcast that we did, they were kind of looking at that $40 an ounce mark, whereas like Kiyosaki here is already $10 over that at 50. And it's a
Yeah.
very doable number. And so, like we did in our previous podcast, what I wanted to do next, Chris, is, again, is this might be the whole notion of silver, buying physical silver, may be new to people.
Hmm.
I have from the Swiss America website, a chart and kind of an explanation of the performance of Morgan silver dollars, which incidentally is thought to be or regarded as the most popular ever U.S. minted coin,
Hmm.
and how that's done against like silver bullion. And it's
Hmm.
really interesting because from a chart standpoint, I know that they're in the process of updating this chart now, but from a chart standpoint and from a performance standpoint, there really has been no comparison. Why? Tell us, Morgan Silver Dollars, why do they have such a better performance on this chart here that we're looking at over the last, what was that, from 2009 through 2024? What
Yeah.
has caused the more dramatic growth from the Morgan dollars?
Well, there's a couple of big advantages. One of them being that it's such a popular, good-looking, historic coin. And when people are going to invest their money into something, especially something tangible and physical like this, if the coin has a good history to it, and they're a bit nostalgic maybe because they remember. I mean, I remember as a kid getting a silver dollar was a big deal, and it
Sure.
was even bigger deal to my parents when they were growing up. And so I think that's a big part of it, just the popularity of it. But then factor in that they haven't made this coin. Gosh, the Morgan, I think the last time was around 1921 that they minted some of those coins. So now you add in some scarcity to it. You can go to any website or coin shop and pick up a modern day 1 ounce silver coin in a variety of different designs and styles, and maybe one speaks to you a little bit more than the other, but there's really nothing unique about it. And they crank them out by the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And so if you can invest in silver with a coin that has a great history and pedigree, and also has um, a limited market, meaning there's a limited supply on hand. They're not going to make any more. Each year that goes by, some are going to be lost or destroyed, and there's going to be even less than the year prior. And so, from an investment standpoint, they just make a lot of sense. You can get them very affordably, and you really don't have a downside to purchasing Morgan dollars. Probably one of the most stable silver investments I've seen in my 15-ish years here.
Well, it's funny you talk about too, as a kid when you used to get silver dollars. I remember
Hmm.
my best friend growing up, his grandpa, when he'd come into town, he'd give us shake shakes, he called them, and he'd shake your hand. He's teaching us how to shake a hand, but in his palm
Hmm.
he'd have a Morgan dollar. And what's so interesting
Yep.
about it, and this is why, for those of you tuning in, this is a market that you definitely want to look into, and you definitely want to be involved in. If you're investing, if you're starting to invest, it fits every bit of the spectrum, if you will. But if you
Hmm.
think about that, those silver dollars, he could have just as easily had a folded up $1 bill and be giving us that in a shake. But instead, he had that silver dollar, and you take a it was they were a dollar bill and that were worth the same back at that time.
Yeah.
But today, that dollar is still worth a dollar, that paper dollar, whereas that silver dollar, roughly speaking, is worth 30, 35 bucks. And
Yep.
it just speaks to the staying power that these metals
Hmm.
have, in how it's like we talked about again in that earlier podcast, how silver has been a staple in our currency and our financial system for centuries now, ours and world systems, I should say, as well.
Yeah.
So looking at or talking about that, and with the Morgan there, one thing too that people who are tuned in here may not be aware of, or maybe they are, but this is something that I think is a very timely thing to discuss, and that is, if you have a retirement account, a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, a 401k, or any type of savings that you are putting away for your future. This is an area that some people may not be aware, but you can actually put gold and silver into these type of investment plans, correct, Chris?
Yeah, and that's what's great about the precious metal, the self-directed IRA program. It's minimal effort. The nice thing about 401ks, 403bs, deferred comp plans, pensions, all these retirement plans that we have here in the United States to save in, is that the IRS and the government have made it very easy to move from these types of plans into an IRA where you can purchase precious metals, and that's a big benefit. I spoke to a lady this morning who wanted to move an old 401k, and it was about a 15-minute conversation to cover some of the basics and help gather some info so that I could get the paperwork put together. But essentially, with that 15 or 20-minute conversation, we're now going to be able to transfer those funds completely tax deferred. There's going to be no taxable consequence to her. And once it arrives in her new precious metals IRA, she's going to be able to purchase physical gold and silver, whether it be bars or coins, that will be securely purchased and stored for her in that IRA. So it can continue to grow tax deferred. She doesn't have to worry about that aspect of it. She can let it sit there until she needs to start drawing on it down the road, like any retirement plan. But in the meantime, at least with my conversation with her, she's going to feel a heck of a lot better about having something real in her retirement plan. She's nervous, like Robert Kiyosaki was talking earlier in this article about a stock market crash. The market is near an all-time high, and there's a lot of reasons why it should probably readjust lower. So I highly recommend giving us a call or visit the website. Our phone number, 1-800-289-2646, or the website, www.swissamerica.com. Request some of our IRA info. There is a comment section when you submit a request. Just tell us you want to learn about IRAs, and we'll know what that means and get you the info you need. But it's very, very simple, seamless process, and a good way to own something physical in your IRA without having to worry about stock market crashes or tax liability.
That's perfect. Going back to that Kiyosaki article, the one thing, as he said, it's not going to be crypto or gold that he's looking
Mhm.
for, it's silver to make the move. One of the points he does mention, I think this is one thing I wanted to end on, is that cryptos and Bitcoin and gold are at all-time highs, whereas
Mhm.
silver is not. And
Yeah,
so it's not only has the validity in the longevity it does as a market, and as an asset or investment, but it has the value there now too. And that's something that's really
yeah,
it has appreciated quite nicely in the last few years. But again, it's of the three, it is still the most undervalued,
right.
uh, as the other two are at all-time highs. So thanks for
Yeah,
sharing. And for those of you tuned in, thanks for doing so. If you're not following us on social media, please do that, as well as subscribe to this podcast if you haven't done that already as well. Thanks for tuning in, as I mentioned. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you real soon.
thanks a lot.